The president ordered the strike. Is that correct?
The president's been saying for over 30 years that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So
I
he's been
got
very
it.
clear as a
We're
position.
talking
When
about
the American people voted for President Trump overwhelmingly, they voted for that
I got
position.
that. But the president ordered the strike. Is that correct?
Which strike are you referring to?
The strike on Iran, the war that we're in.
Oh, of course. I mean,
Okay.
he's the commander-in-chief.
So
He's
it
made
sounds like
the calls.
It sounds like you're blaming Daddy for the mess we're in, and I don't think he's going to be particularly happy with you.
Pete Hegseth was asked about 6 dead American soldiers and somehow turned the answer into a complaint about Donald Trump looking bad. That was the moment this hearing broke open. Before that, Eugene Vindman had already exposed the larger failure. Oil prices surging, the Strait of Hormuz choked off, and American families paying more for a war they were promised would never happen. Then came the question of responsibility. Hegseth said he accepted it, but almost immediately he shifted toward blaming the press. Vindman cut him off with one brutal correction. It's actually about the soldiers. We're going to break down the broken promises, the economic damage, and the moment Hegseth revealed that protecting Trump's image mattered more than answering for the consequences. Now watch Vindman force accountability back into the room.
Earlier, Secretary Hegseth, you talked about flexible realism. So let's see if we can figure out how much of it is realistic and how much of it is just flexible. Secretary Hegseth, last year I asked you some questions about Indo-PACOM and threats in Europe, and you had a hard time answering those questions. I'm sure you prepped better this year, and I'm hoping you can answer some of these basic questions since now we are at war. Do you know what the price of oil is today?
I don't know where it's gone as this time of this hearing, but roughly $100 a barrel.
It's actually closer to 120, 117.
Well, it depends on the index you're looking at.
I'm looking at Brent. Do you know what the price was the day before of Brent, the day before we went to war?
It was certainly lower. You understand you're taking some economic risk. But I would note
a lot lower.
The energy
Thank you for
dominance
answering
this
my
president
question.
has unleashed has put us in an incredible
question.
position.
Thank you. So it's $72, and so now we have a 62% increase. By the way, the department obviously will be paying those extra fuel costs. That's going to be not insignificant, but so will the American people. Now, at its narrowest point, how wide is the Strait of Hormuz?
I think it's about 12 miles, but I'd have to check.
It's 24 miles, but 12 miles is actually the relevant number because that's the navigable channel.
That's the international water navigable channel point.
And do you know how many barrels of oil transited the Strait of Hormuz each day before the war started?
I don't know the exact number, but you're looking at over 100 oil tankers usually transited a day, or 120 a day would transport the strait.
Yeah, and so 20 million barrels a day, and right now they're at an 81% reduction. So it sounds like you've done your homework. You're tracking pretty well what the strategic situation is. So a couple of questions. Were you aware that if we struck Iran, that they would most likely close the Strait of Hormuz?
Of course, our department was prepared and planning for every possible contingency, being front and center as something they may do in a desperate state to attempt to
which is what they've done,
some kind of control.
And I appreciate that. And earlier you told Mr. Moulton that this department has looked at all aspects of the risk and that the president got every possible perspective. And then recently you just said that the president did understand the risks and had the courage to undertake the endeavor nonetheless, and that's leadership, or words to that effect, pretty close. And so I just want to kind of give you the state of play right now. It's been 2 months of war. We have hopes for a resolution, but the war continues, really. Iran has closed the strait, and we've now gone in and blockaded their ports. 1/5 of the world's oil is unable to transit the strait, and the American people and the department are paying significantly more. And you also said that this is what the American people actually voted for. But actually, the American people voted for a promise not to get into Middle Eastern wars. And they voted for lower prices. And this is the exact opposite of what they got. So let me ask you this. The president ordered the strike. Is that correct?
The president's been saying for over 30 years that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So he's been very clear as a position. When the American people voted for President Trump overwhelmingly, they voted for that position.
That, but the president ordered the strike. Is that correct?
Which strike are you referring to?
The strike on Iran, the war that we're in.
Oh, of course. I mean,
Okay.
he's the commander-in-chief.
So
He's
it
made
sounds like
the calls.
It sounds like you're blaming Daddy for the mess we're in, and I don't think he's going to be particularly happy with you.
I see what you're trying to do. There's no daylight in this administration on this
Mr.
on this
Secretary, I'm
campaign,
asking
and I'm happy
questions. You've been
to
admonished
stand
for this
shoulder to shoulder
before.
with this
You're
administration.
claiming my time. So let's shift gears. Last time we were here, I asked you if you'd apologize to the mother of an F-18 pilot whose son you endangered for sharing classified information on a signal chat. You refused. On March 1st, 6 Army soldiers, including a constituent of mine, were killed by an Iranian drone strike. Do you take any responsibility for those deaths?
I was there at Dover when they came back. Of course, I take
So was I.
responsibility for every aspect
Well,
of
I
this
appreciate
mission.
that, because you also complained about the fact that tragic things happen. The news makes it front-page news. The press only wants to make the president look bad. Is it about the soldiers, or is it about the president looking bad?
It's not just the president who wants, or the media that wants to make him look bad. It's you.
It's actually about the soldiers, and it's frankly reprehensible that you would make that statement. And so, Truman had a sign on his desk that said, "The buck stops here." And this
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes.
Eugene Vindman's questioning exposed a widening gap between what the Trump administration promised and what its war has delivered. Americans were promised lower prices. They were promised an end to endless Middle Eastern wars. Instead, Vindman laid out a conflict that had driven oil prices higher, disrupted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, increased costs for the Pentagon, and forced American families to absorb the consequences. Vindman did not need dramatic language. The numbers were damaging enough. He asked Hegseth whether the administration understood that striking Iran could lead to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Hegseth insisted that the department had planned for every major contingency and that Trump understood the risks. That answer did not protect the administration. It made the failure more deliberate. If officials understood the risk of closing one of the world's most important energy routes, understood the likely effect on oil prices, and moved forward anyway, then the economic damage cannot be dismissed as an unexpected complication. It was a foreseeable cost imposed on the public. Vindman then dismantled the claim that this war represented the will of the voters. Americans did not vote for higher fuel costs and another widening war in the Middle East. They were told the opposite. They were told Trump would reduce conflict and lower prices. The policy delivered the reverse. When Vindman asked whether Trump ordered the strike, Hegseth initially avoided the direct answer. He spoke broadly about Trump's long-standing position on Iran, before eventually acknowledging that the commander-in-chief made the decision. Vindman mocked the hesitation because the evasion was obvious. The administration wanted to celebrate the use of force while becoming far less direct when responsibility for the consequences entered the conversation. Then Vindman raised the 6 Army soldiers killed by an Iranian drone strike. This was the moral center of the hearing. He asked Hegseth whether he took responsibility for their deaths. Hegseth said that he accepted responsibility for every aspect of the operation. But instead of staying with the soldiers, their mission, or the decision-making that put them in danger, he pivoted toward the press and the claim that the media wanted to make Trump look bad. That response exposed the administration's governing reflex. Every failure becomes a media problem. Every consequence becomes an attack on the president. Every demand for accountability becomes an alleged partisan ambush. Vindman rejected that framing immediately. It's actually about the soldiers. That sentence mattered because it restored the proper hierarchy of responsibility. The deaths of American service members are not public relations obstacles. They are not inconvenient headlines. They are the gravest consequences a defense secretary can be asked to explain. Hegseth's obligation was not to protect Trump from criticism. His obligation was to explain the mission, defend the decision, and answer for the lives lost. Vindman's reference to Harry Truman's "the buck stops here" standard made the contrast even sharper. Real leadership does not accept responsibility in one sentence and redirect blame in the next. It does not hide behind media hostility or political loyalty. It owns the decision and its consequences. That is what Hegseth failed to do. The larger warning from this exchange is not simply that the war has produced higher prices and military casualties. It is that the administration appears incapable of separating national security accountability from the political protection of Donald Trump. When the Secretary of Defense treats scrutiny of dead troops as an attack on the president, civilian leadership of the military becomes distorted by loyalty politics. Vindman did not merely win an exchange. He exposed the governing priority behind it. The soldiers came second. Protecting Trump came first.